Welcome back to the Minecraft Book Club, the series where I play Minecraft while talking about books. And today we're going to be talking about Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger, specifically chapters 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26, thus completing the book. That's right, everyone, we're going to be done with Catcher in the Rye after today. Well, not really. Whoa, what is this camera? We still have one more episode left, and that's just going to be the review analysis video that I do for every book. But yeah, otherwise, this is the last episode. And like always, we're going to be building something. I say that even though we haven't done that for 2 episodes, but we're going to be building an extension to our main street right here. This is, I think, the south side, because everything past the railroad here that we're going to put in is going to be on the north side. So this is the south side of Fort Oxbow, and I'm sure you can tell from the thumbnail what we're building, but I'm going to put a gun shop right here, a little gunsmith, and right here I'm going to put a bookstore. Whoa, those are really random builds, Candles. Well, yeah, they are, except underneath all of these, we're going to put a couple of farms. The gunsmith here is obviously going to have our gunpowder farm, and the used bookstore is actually going to have our paper farm. And we need both of these farms because I have elytra now, right? You can see my beautiful wings, so beautiful. But I don't have any fireworks, I don't have a good supply of gunpowder or paper. So we're going to put a nice little paper farm and a nice little gunpowder farm. And I've sort of marked out everything we're going to need to do, but this hill is going to need to be toppled. So while we do that, let's go ahead and start summarizing the segment. So last we left off, Holden was in Phoebe's room after sneaking into his apartment, and Phoebe had buried herself in a pillow after finding out that Holden had gotten kicked out of Pensy Prep. So when Holden comes back into the room after going to grab a cigarette from the living room, Phoebe just asks him point blank, "Why'd you get kicked out?" And it basically boils down to that everyone at Pensy was really phony. He talks about how he himself wasn't weak enough to deny joining a frat, so he joined a fraternity, and he felt really bad because they wouldn't let pimply kids like Ackley join the frat. So they were excluded from these groups. And Holden talks about a bunch of other things he doesn't like about Pensy Prep, and this is where Phoebe cuts in, and she says, "Holden, you don't like anything." So they get in a little bit of an argument over that, and then Phoebe pulls the, "Oh, you like things? Name one thing" card on Holden. And unsurprisingly, Holden struggles to answer the question of what does he like. His mind sort of blanks. He thinks about the nuns in the cafe that he talked to, and then he starts thinking about this kid named James Castle. And James Castle was this kid that had done something and then was being bullied by a bunch of the kids on his floor. And when all these bullies went and confronted James Castle, he just jumped out of the window and went splat on the ground. So his mind gets pretty occupied with this little flashback trauma, so he's unable to produce an answer for Phoebe. I lied, he actually does produce an answer. He says Allie, which is his little brother that died. But then Phoebe's like, "No, Allie's dead." So then after some more talking, Phoebe asks Holden, "What do you want to be? What do you even want to be when you grow up? Right? What's your dream job?" And of course, Holden Caulfield does not know what he wants to be. So he says man, I don't know. But actually, Holden Caulfield knows exactly what he wants to be. Now, if his name was actually Dr. Michael Morbius, this is where he would say it's Morbin time. Holden tells Phoebe that he wishes he could just be this big old boy playing on a cliff with a bunch of little kids. He specifically says that he wants there to be 1,000 kids, and they're all playing some sort of kids game in this giant field of rye. And as they're playing, they're constantly almost falling off of the cliff, but Holden catches them before they fall. He tells Phoebe, I don't know, I think I just want to be the catcher in the rye for these kids. Anyway, Holden tells Phoebe that he can't stay here long, because their parents are going to get here soon. So he decides to call an old English teacher of his called Mr. Antolini. And Antolini picks up pretty quickly, and he's like, "Oh yeah, sure Holden, you can come spend the night over here." Before he heads over to Mr. Antolini's house, he stands around and dances with Phoebe for a bit, just listening to random songs on the radio. But as they're doing this, all of a sudden, Holden's parents come home, so he decides to go and hide in the closet. And after his parents leave to go to bed, he comes back out and he's like, "Alright, Phoebe, I gotta leave." And Phoebe realizes that Holden doesn't have any money, so she tells Holden to wait, and she pulls out her Christmas money, and she's just like, "You can use this, Holden." And Holden starts crying all of a sudden, and he feels bad because he's like, oh, I'm probably scaring Phoebe. But as he leaves, he goes down the stairs, and he's kind of hoping that his parents catch him, but they do not. So Holden makes his way over to Mr. Antolini's house. And Mr. Antolini is his old English teacher, and they used to play tennis together. And Holden really likes Mr. Antolini because they share the same sentiment in regards to DB, which is Holden's older brother. When Mr. Antolini found out that DB was going to Hollywood to write, he called him several times to tell him not to because his writing was too good and he should be writing books instead of being in phony Hollywood, which Holden agrees with completely. So Holden gets to Mr. Antolini's house. Mr. Antolini is pretty drunk because it looks like they were just hosting a party that just finished. And so Mr. Antolini and Holden start talking about Pensy Prep and what went wrong. Holden talks about flanking the class oral expressions, which confuses Mr. Antolini, because Holden's really good at English. But Holden basically says he flunked that class because he really liked digressions, which weren't allowed in the class. Anyway, they keep talking, and Mr. Antolini mentions that he got lunch with Holden's father, and Holden's dad and Mr. Antolini share the same sentiment that Holden is in a troublesome, worrisome position right now. Mr. Antolini says, Holden, you will fall at some point. You might think you can goof off right now, but at some point you will fall. Mr. Antolini then just decides to drop an absolute bar. He says that the mark of an immature man is that he will die nobly for a cause, but the mark of a mature man is that he will live humbly for one instead. Absolute bar, thank you so much, J.D. Salinger. So after that, Mr. Antolini starts talking to Holden about education. He essentially tells Holden that no matter what, he's going to find himself having to learn in his life. And basically that an education is really good because it tells you the limits of your mind. And lastly, that the educated tend to be able to describe stuff better than those who are uneducated. After all that, Holden decides to go to sleep on Mr. Antolini's couch, so they say goodnight, and Holden falls asleep. But when Holden wakes up in the middle of the night, he finds Mr. Antolini over him patting his head. Or petting, he's kind of unsure. So Holden obviously doesn't like this. He wakes up, and he's like, sorry, Mr. Antolini, I gotta go, and he hurries out of there, and Mr. Antolini's like, what a weird kid. But then Holden's also like, this type of perverty stuff has happened to me like over 20 times, I'm not about to deal with it again. He goes back to Grand Central Station, which is where he has all his luggage, and by now it's daytime, so he just like sleeps in Grand Central Station. This farm is using an unbelievable amount of planks. I've gone through this is my third stack of logs just to make these dang trapdoors. It's absurd. After his little nap, he decides to go to a cafe. He tries eating donuts, but he can't stomach any. He then decides he's going to start moving out west, and he's just going to do this by hitchhiking. And he's like, okay, I got to tell Phoebe, because Phoebe's going to be really upset if I don't tell her. So he writes a letter that he decides he's going to give to the office. So Holden goes over to Phoebe's school to drop off the note. And he talks about how he's crossing the street to get there, and he feels like he disappears when he crosses the street. He feels like he falls into some sort of hole and disappears. Anyway, he drops the letter off at Phoebe's school and then starts getting really angry at all the graffiti at her school with a bunch of curse words all over the place. But he drops the letter off to the office, and the office is like, alright, good luck at Pensy. And then Holden's like, I hate when people say good luck. In the letter, he told Phoebe to meet him at the museum. So he goes over to the museum. Oh, I'm out of wood. While waiting for Phoebe at the museum, he guides some kids to the museum exhibit because they ask him. And it takes Phoebe quite a while to get to the museum. And once she arrives, Holden sees why. And that's because Phoebe has packed all of her own bags so she can go out west with Holden. And Holden gets really upset at her, makes her cry. He's like, you can't come with me. This is my trip, blah, blah, blah. But then he feels bad for yelling at Phoebe, so he's like, look, Phoebe, can we just go to the zoo? And he ends up saying, like, I'm not going to leave, let's just go to the zoo. And as they go to the zoo, Phoebe won't talk to him. She gives him the cold shoulder. She actually keeps quite a distance between her and Holden while they go to the zoo. But once they get there, Holden's like, go ride the carousel with the other kids. So then she does that, and she's really happy. So then the book ends with Holden a little bit in the future saying like, am I going to apply myself when I go back to school? I don't know. But then the closing sentence to the book is something along the lines of, don't tell anybody anything, otherwise you'll start caring about everyone. And yeah, that's how the book ends. Okay, what in the world? Dude, I need fish. So yeah, that's all of the book. That's the entire summary. Isn't that fantastic? We're going to talk about the book here in a bit, but right now I am fishing because I need fish. So that saddle does not help me at all. I need fish. There we go, fishy business. And you might be wondering, oh, what do you need fish for? Well, I need fish to tame a cat, and I need the cat for the creeper farm. So, uh-oh. Where am I gonna get a cat? Pretty sure I've killed every cat that has spawned in the village here, so I'm honestly not sure if we have cats anymore. There should be one that spawns though, right? Well, it looks like we're gonna have to go on a little bit of an adventure, because I have been standing around for, I think, like 20-30 minutes, and there have been no cats. So, that's kind of a shame. But on the map, you can see in this top right corner, there's a village. I think there's a village here as well, so we're going to go check those out, and perhaps we can find ourselves a cat. So let's head in that direction. There we go, there is a village. Oh, there we go. Hello, cat. You're going to be sitting in a dark hole for the rest of your life. I hope you enjoy it. There we go. Whoa. So hopefully we shouldn't ever have to do that ever again. But the cat should teleport to me, like, right here, I hope. Please teleport to me, little cat. Thank you. Come here. Ha. Ha-ha. Foolish cat, you are now mine. You are trapped forever in this dark hole. You have fallen for my trick. So now that the cat is in there, it should make all the creepers, like, run away all scared. Creepers see a cat and they're like, oh my gosh, no, I'm gonna wet myself. And then they run all the way down here. They should die on the magma. Look, we got 1 gunpowder already. I am a professional. My friends, that is music to my ears. It's not very efficient, but it works. And that's what matters. Anyway, we've got another farm to do. This is just the gunpowder farm. We're also going to need to do a paper farm. So the paper farm is going to go right here, just like that. And as you can see, I did this all off camera because it's hard to talk about books while doing redstone. But basically, it's really simple. We have these blocks of mud, and below those we have hoppers that all go into this. I'll explain that in a bit. But we basically have a piston, and the piston has redstone behind it, which powers this block. The observer powers this block, which somehow powers this redstone. I designed this all myself without watching a tutorial, and then I watched a tutorial and they had it reversed. So the redstone was on top, powering the block. I don't think it matters. But I'm doing all of this on top of mud, because mud has a special property where the item will fall through into the hopper. So that's pretty cool and snazzy. And it all goes here, right? It goes here into this hopper, and it goes into this crafter, which I designed this all by myself. Let's see if we can get in here. Perfect. I love elytra. Super nice. But I have let's see. If we hit F3, you can see over here it says level 5. So that's what I have this powered to. And that's because this will output a level... this outputs level 5 once that third sugarcane plops in. So then this comparator is like, oh, this signal strength is now equal to or greater than this opposing signal strength, so I'm going to let out a charge. So it pulses out on the crafter and it spits out a paper, but then because now it doesn't have that many sugarcane in there, it stops the pulse, and then it turns off this comparator. So I designed that all by myself too in a creative world. That took I think 20 or 30 minutes. It wasn't that difficult to figure out. I'm trying to get better at redstone. And the best way to do that is to not follow tutorials. It's the same way with programming. You got to try it yourself, and then you can go and watch the best way to do stuff. But you got to try it out first yourself, and I'm really happy with what I worked out here. And sorry if I sound a little sick, it's because I am. I I made the clip to transition into this, and then I made it, and then I went to sleep that night, and then the next morning I was sick. So it's been like 4 days since I've worked on that, but in the meantime, I went and did that little Minecraft event, and I have the cool cape. And I think I don't know, it matches the pumpkin a bit. It looks kind of weird. Or, I mean, like this, the colors on it, fantastic. But then if I take it off and it's just the cape, it looks kind of awkward. So it only works well if I have my elytra. And might I quickly add that that was the most annoying event I've ever done. I haven't done any Minecraft event before, but why in the world did it have to be on Bedrock Edition? I can't use Bedrock Edition. I'm on Linux, so I had to go install Minecraft on this crappy little laptop I have that could barely run a Pokemon clone I was coding in Java. So I had to play this stupid Minecraft Bedrock event on this laptop that's not meant to play video games to get a cape. Can they not just do it in Java or something? I don't get it. It's not that different. It's like the same game. But yeah, now that all those farms are done, we just have the buildings to make, which is the easy part for me because I've done that multiple times. So let's get started on that. And while we do that, let's go ahead and talk about some aspects of the book, or just things I thought about. The first thing I want to talk about is I think that it's now revealed why Holden hates adults or adulthood so much. And it seems to be the general, like, unfair mistreatment of people as you become an adult. I think Holden sees the world as children are kind of all treated fairly and they all have the same whimsy about them. But when it comes to Holden's experiences, based on, like, you know, Ackley being mistreated... Hold on. Try me, jerk. Yeah, that's what I thought. Slowly eradicating the Enderman. But yeah, when it comes to Holden and his own experiences, right? He joined that frat, but Ackley wasn't joined in because he was pimply. And then there was that one kid at his old school that basically got bullied into suicide. So Holden probably just views adults as just awful people. And I think it's coming to the realization of that makes him want to stay a kid forever, where everything is like perfect and happy and you don't have many worries. You don't have to worry about random kids coming up and beating you in your dorm. You don't have to worry about, you know, just random classmates falling out of the window. So I think Holden really just hates the injustice of being an adult, where not everything is fair. You know, we always hear the phrase that, you know, life isn't fair, but wouldn't it be cool if it was? So next I kind of want to talk about Mr. Antolini's talk about education and why it's necessary. And I haven't thought about this before, but Mr. Antolini brought it up in his conversation. But it's the fact that while, you know, the uneducated can be smart, nothing that they, I don't know, come up with gets preserved, I guess is a good way to put it. Everything that, you know, is important to us is basically preserved by the uneducated, or the educated, right? Because it's the educated that are able to explain what their knowledge is. You can be smart, but if you don't know how to explain your smartness, which is something you learn through education, I guess, then you're just in a hole, right? No one can ever appreciate your genius, I guess. And while I don't think this is 100% the case with everyone, I do think that it's a good general guideline when it comes to educated people, is that they're really good at explaining things compared to the uneducated, at least when it comes to complex things. But then again, there could also be a bias with that, as in the only records that are preserved are from educated people, so we don't really record the records of people that weren't educated. I still thought it was an interesting point for Mr. Antolini to bring up to Holden in that conversation, is that Holden is a curious, you know, kid that likes thinking about stuff. So eventually he will get to the point where he needs an education, because otherwise he's not going to be able to explain anything that he's thinking about. I personally think that an education is good, although you shouldn't go to like college just to go to college. A lot of people do that and they end up majoring in things they don't want to, or they really don't care about. But you know, in general, I think it's a good idea to learn. Curiosity is good, even if it kills the cat. You know, even if it kills the cat, it helps the cat understand what's going on. What I'm trying to say here is basically that an education is a mark of passion. And that doesn't mean like, oh, you gotta go get a college degree in whatever you're passionate in. It just means to be educated in a subject. You can do that yourself through just books or watching YouTube videos that are more educational than something else, but humans are naturally curious creatures. So if you're not curious and you're not educating yourself on at least something that sounds interesting to you, I don't know, I feel like there's something a little off with you. I mean, we all know the phrase, right? You gotta learn something new every day. I don't know if that's actually a phrase, but I'm saying that. Alright, well the next thing I want to talk about is whether or not you guys think Mr. Antolini is a creep or a weirdo, because he kind of just pets Holden while he's sleeping. Do you guys find that weird? I find it incredibly weird. Holden is 16, alright? That is practically an adult. And Mr. Antolini's just petting him like he's a little dog. I've been reading a lot of stuff online of people trying to analyze this book, just so I can make a little better sense of what's going on. And it seems pretty disputed on whether people think that Mr. Antolini is a creep or if it's Holden just blowing things out of proportion. I think that Mr. Antolini is a creep. And my thinking on that is because, right, Holden has stood his ground on most things, whether it be fighting against that pimp because of the money, and calling him just like a loser the whole time. But then when it comes to Mr. Antolini, after the whole incident, Holden starts questioning his judgment. And he's like, oh, maybe I just overreacted with Mr. Antolini. And I think if Holden's questioning his judgment, he's a little unsure on whether he was right in his judgment. And I feel like that's because he's shaken up quite a bit from the whole experience. I can't buy the idea that Mr. Antolini is not a creep. Maybe he's not a creep, but if you do that in the modern day and age, right, you're found petting a student, a 16-year-old student while they're asleep, you're going to jail, okay? And I would know because my high school had a lot of problems with that. So, in the 4 years I was there, I think we had 2 teachers go for, being with students. And if a teacher had done that at my school, they would be gone. The police would come in and arrest them like they did the other teachers. It seems like the general consensus of everyone that thinks that Holden is just overreacting and Mr. Antolini isn't weird, their opinion seems to be that Holden is, just like lying like he does most things. And if you remember from last episode, he was really worried about this one kid. I forgot his name, but he used to be his advisor at a school, and he was really worried that that kid was gay. So people are saying that Holden's just over-sexualizing just random encounters with teachers that are actually perfectly normal. But I don't know, if you're petting your student, that's bad. Don't pet your student. I think even if it were, just like a kindergartner, and the kindergartner fell asleep in class, and the teacher just came over and started petting the kid, that might be a little better, but that's still horrible. If I saw a teacher petting my kid like that, I would flip. That's just weird. The kid is sleeping. Let them sleep. You can think it's cute from a distance, I guess, because you're like, oh, the little kid is sleeping. Petting them though, that's just kind of weird. But I don't know, if you do agree with the idea that Mr. Antolini is just being over-sexualized by Holden because that's all Holden thinks about, then, that's a fair opinion too, I guess. So just let me know what you guys think. Is Mr. Antolini a creep? Vote now on your phones. So my next point is a pretty brief one. I just wanted to acknowledge the symmetry in the story. In the very first few chapters of the book, we had a thing going on where Holden talked about disappearing anytime he crossed the street, and we also had something where he got upset at someone because they wished him good luck. And I just find it really cool that in some of the last chapters of the book, we get the exact same thing going on. Holden goes to the office, and the office lady tells him good luck, and then he also crosses some streets to get to the office and feels like he fell down a hole and just disappeared from reality. So that's just some cool symmetry, I thought. My next point is also just really small. I've read this book before, but I always forget what the cover is, because the cover is just this horse on red. And I'm like, that doesn't have anything to do with A Catcher in the Rye. But it does, actually. It's the carousel that Phoebe rides at the end of the book. So I just thought that was a neat little thing. I always forget about it, so it's nice to rediscover it each time. So the last thing I want to talk about for this segment is the final line of the book. And that final line was, of course, don't ever tell anybody anything, otherwise you'll start caring about everyone. So I found this to be a very interesting line to close off the book, especially after everything Holden has kind of gone through. He's just like, don't ever tell anybody anything, otherwise you'll start caring about people. And honestly, this kind of sounds like sarcasm in a way. I think what Holden is saying that if you want to care about people in your life, you got to talk to people. I think that's what it really means, and Holden's just, pulling our leg. And I think the message of the book is that to be vulnerable with people, you have to be vulnerable yourself. And I think that's also part of the reason why he struggles to get a girlfriend, kinda, is he's unable to be vulnerable with his own thoughts and ideas. So when it comes to dating people, he struggles in that realm a ton. The elytra is so nice. I don't have to walk all the way to my storage room. I can just fly over here. It's super nice. And then I can grab the dark oak that I need, which is right here. Oh, we were running short. But yeah, that's all I really have to talk about for this segment. Next episode, we're going to be reviewing the entire book. I'm thinking of doing a little something different with that episode. I'm thinking of basically writing an essay on the book and basically reading the essay while I make a video. It's not going to be that boring, though. I'm going to make it more interesting than just me reading an essay. You can trust me on that. But I kind of want to change the review analysis videos into me dissecting the argument of the book. Like, why does this book exist? And, like, what is the author trying to tell us? So that's what we're going to do in the review episode that comes out on Wednesday, hopefully, which should be Christmas, so that'll be fun, I guess. And I know I said in a previous episode that the next book was going to be something nice and festive, but because I got sick, I got delayed by a week, and that's not going to be happening. So instead of doing that, we're going to be starting off the year with the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. And I'm also going to change the format so we only have like 3 episodes of me reading the book. So it'll be first third, second third, last third, and then I'll have the little analysis video as the 4th video. So we should be able to knock out a book every 2 weeks. That's the goal. Is that actually going to happen? Time will tell. But yeah, this build is mostly done. I just have to add a few details right here. Wow, we've got a sign that says guns now. We have a gun on top. We have some fabulous, majestic doors. This place has a floor now, so I just go down here and I go into my paper farm. But yeah, I didn't do any detailing on that. Most of it was on this building right here. So we have some stripped oak going up. We've got some letters, spells guns. And then we've got a giant gun right here. I also made another spyglass because I realized we lost our old one in the end, but now we can zoom in on everything. And look at that. Guns. So the plan moving forward is we're going to have the book review analysis video on Wednesday, and then I believe before the year ends, we're going to have the interiors video, just because I'd like to start doing interiors in the main episode we do it in, because otherwise it builds up. We've got a ton of interiors to do. But yeah, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you all have a fantastic day.